Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into a very special episode of JumpCast from the award-winning team behind Jump Cut Online. Today, we have assembled our nearest and dearest to talk about the black sheep of the Star Wars family, the prequels. I'm Audrey Fox, and I am joined today by dear friends to share our deepest, darkest feelings about these films. We have on our pod today Fiona Underhill.
Hello.
Hello. Erin Vale.
What's up?
Hey. And Jeff Soldy.
Hello there.
Hello. Thanks for being here, guys. We have a lot to cover, so let's try to get right into it and jump in with The Phantom Menace, which I feel like is sort of like an intergalactic policy wonk's favorite film, a little bit. Written and directed by George Lucas. It's released in 1999 and stars Liam Neeson, Ewan McGregor, Natalie Portman, amongst others. Just a reminder that this episode will have spoilers, so if you haven't watched the prequels yet, maybe just hold off. Go watch those. They're on Disney Plus, and then come back and listen later. So, as we begin, turmoil has engulfed the Galactic Republic. The taxation of trade routes to outlying star systems is in dispute. Hoping to resolve the matter with the blockade of deadly battleships, the greedy Trade Federation has stopped all shipping to the small planet of Naboo. While the Congress of the Republic endlessly debates this alarming chain of events, the Supreme Chancellor has secretly dispatched 2 Jedi Knights, the guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy, to settle the conflict. So, right off the bat, we've got maybe not the greatest conditions for an action-adventure film. Taxation, blockades, trade disputes.
Oh, it's so politics heavy, isn't it?
I just feel like anybody watching this at the time who was like in Model UN was like, yes, this is my jam.
As a person who did Model UN, I can say that the opening crawl reads like the summary of what your committee would be, to be like, okay, this is a problem you're gonna have to solve as fake countries or normal countries, and it's a fake problem. So
yeah. But before we get too far into the weeds, I want to see if we can just quickly paint a picture of where we all were mentally going into this film for the very first time. So what were your expectations, if you had any, and I guess what was your relationship with Star Wars circa 1999?
Yeah, in my case, that it is important to paint quite a vivid picture because I was at university, so I was a college student when Phantom Menace came out, and I was beyond excited. Excitement levels couldn't have been higher, really, and I don't think I've ever recovered from the hype for Phantom Menace. It's kind of informed my entire life since as a geek. I grew up on Star Wars like most kids of the 80s. I had an older brother who had Star Wars bedding. I was obsessed with Han Solo, who was my first crush. And we'd had in 1996, we'd had the originals released in cinemas. So that really helped with kind of getting people ready for what would be the prequels. So we were all kind of primed because we'd seen the originals in theatres only a couple of years before. I was absolutely obsessed with Phantom Menace before it came out. I bought every single magazine that was related to it, even things like Time magazine and Vanity Fair, which were quite hard to get hold of in the UK in 1999. And I bought the illustrated screenplay of The Phantom Menace before I'd even seen the film. I was absolutely obsessed with it. So, yeah, my hype levels going in were extremely high. And I had that whole emotional reaction to the opening bars of the music, seeing the opening crawl. I was just couldn't believe my eyes and ears.
That's exciting. I feel like that's how you want to go into it. Yeah, but then I guess the danger is overhype, which I feel like a lot of people had issues with.
Yeah.
Jeff, what about you?
Well, in 1999, I was 3 years old, so not a whole lot
Shut
of.
up.
Yeah, I was 3 years old when The Phantom Menace came out. I was born in 1996, so obviously I did not see it on release day. I saw it years later. I had watched the original trilogy before I saw this one. I honestly forget who showed the movies to me, but whoever they were a good person, and they showed me the originals before showing me the prequels. I think, like most kids, I was just really excited because I saw pictures of Darth Maul, and I saw pictures of his freaking double-sided lightsaber, and I knew that this was about, oh, the kid who would become Darth Vader. So to me as a kid, I remember thinking, oh, this is, the coolest thing ever. And of course, all the politics of it went right over my head, because I was a child. But yeah, not as cool a story as Fee's, because being a toddler and all.
That's fair. I mean, I feel like we would all forgive you for that. Erin, your introduction to Star Wars.
So I have a fairly similar introduction situation because I was 6 when The Phantom Menace came out, and I remember my parents like trying to get me to want to see it and see Star Wars in general by saying like, but there's a princess in it. And even as a 6-year-old, I could tell that was pandering, and I was not having it. So I was so resistant, and I was like, I don't want to see this. I know you guys are just trying to say that it has princess, but like it's probably dumb and something I'm not going to like. But a few years later, I watched the original trilogy with my friends when I was like 9 or 10 and became obsessed. And I mean, my Star Wars like secret shame is that I watched them in reverse order. So I watched Return of the Jedi first. And then watched them like, 654, which is like, it's horror. I mean, we just had so many questions looking back. Like when Luke and Leia kiss in Empire Strikes Back, it's even more confusing when it's already been established that they're siblings. So I saw Attack of the Clones in theaters. That was the first one I saw in theaters. And I saw Phantom Menace after that. I think I like rented it on DVD, and I was very bored by it. And I remember I had a lot of the like supplementary material from the Phantom Menace though, like in between when I had seen Attack of the Clones and that, like I had all of the character diaries and was like really honed in on Padme. Really just wanted to know everything about Padme and her whole deal. So yeah, and then, fast forward to now, and I think about Star Wars probably every other thought. It's kind of just on in the background in my mind at all times, so.
Yeah, I feel like that's funny because I definitely think I saw The Phantom Menace with your dad.
Really?
Not like in theaters, but I feel like we watched it at your house. And he was like, gotta watch this pod racing scene, it's so good. And I was like, yeah, this makes sense.
Well, the pod racing scene is good, so.
Yeah, I just remember he was like so hyped about the pod racing scene because of like the technology.
That tracks.
Similar vibes to when he wanted to show everybody Lawrence of Arabia to like the desert scenes and stuff.
Oh my god.
But I had not like watched any Star Wars movies before The Phantom Menace. I was probably about 10 when it came out. I didn't see it in theaters. I saw it on VHS probably like within a few months of it being released on like tape, and I really liked it because I had a really big crush on Ewan McGregor, so I was like all in on that and went back and watched the original trilogy, and so I was all like ready to go once Attack of the Clones came out and like saw that in theaters, and I've never looked back. So yeah, it's been a ride, right? I feel like
what a ride. Look at us. Who would have thought?
We've all been on a huge journey with this saga. Just want to quickly say the other reason that Phantom Menace had such hype is that it's got one of the best posters of all time. And that poster with Anakin as, Jake Lloyd in the foreground, and then his shadow behind him, the silhouette is Darth Vader.
Oh yeah.
Such
that
a good poster. Yeah.
That poster is so amazing. Like that would hold up today, I think. It's so good.
Yeah, it's like simplistic. Yeah.
I feel like Audrey and Jeff and we kind of don't have this like the delay in the original trilogy to the prequels because we kind of saw them all in the same around the same time. So I feel like, I don't know, at least for me and a lot of my friends, it's just like, oh, it's like more Star Wars, but in a short period of time, as opposed to like falling in love with the original trilogy and it's this thing that you love, and then cut to the Phantom Menace and it's kind of just like, what is happening here? Is this Star Wars now?
It was that's the thing. It was such a huge desert between like the 80s up until when Phantom Menace came out. And particularly being, a girl and a teenager and being really sort of geeky and into that kind of thing. It just felt like, we'd been waiting so long, and just, the feelings were intense, put it that way.
Yeah, it seems like that kind of gap, that kind of feeling was probably like it was for us between when we watched these movies as a kid and like episode 7 coming out, I think.
Yeah.
Probably that feeling of anticipation, because I know, again, I was more excited than anybody when that one came out. When the opening crawl started, I like stood up and cheered in the theater. It was so exciting. But so I think I can relate to the feelings in that way, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the Phantom Menace is sort of a perfect example of what happens to a creative person, like a director, when they've gone a really, really long time without anyone ever telling them no, that's not a good idea. I just feel like there are good ideas in it, but then there's also stuff that, like, if anybody had creative control in it, like besides George Lucas, somebody would have talked him out of certain things. Like, I feel like they did a lot in the original trilogy where he had other people like writing and directing and just contributing in a lot of different ways to be like, no, let's maybe not do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we talked about this a bit before, in the build up to this podcast, that George Lucas definitely has the same syndrome that people like J.K. Rowling and maybe to a lesser extent Ridley Scott and James Cameron have, where they go back to their beloved IPs and start to mess around with them in a way that is very confusing for the fans of the original things that they made. And they just can't let it lie, they can't let it go, and then they start to add more and, and more and more and mess around with it, and it's just like, no, please stop.
It is
like,
pretty
stop touching it.
It is pretty amazing how kind of like little other oversight that are like, I mean, he had control over it alone, basically, over the prequels compared to now with like Disney owning Star Wars, and how like Kathleen Kennedy obviously has a very heavy hand in things, and there's the story group, and there's everything that's just like so many levels of people asking like, well, does this make sense for Star Wars, and is this part of the universe, and is this, is the story good? And it was kind of just him on his own being like, nope, this is what I want, and I'm gonna make billions of dollars, and I'm gonna get to do what I want, and like, no people can stop me.
Definitely.
Unchecked power. like a
Unlimited
certain
power.
Yeah, a certain someone.
Oh boy. Yeah, it's like, nope, I'm gonna put a Jar Jar like getting hit in the balls joke here, and like, what are you gonna do? You can't stop me from doing it.
Jar Jar getting electrocuted with his tongue on the pod race. Comedy gold.
Just Jar Jar.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Jar Jar in general, just in the entire concept of that character. Let's just not, George, please.
It's very. I was thinking about this. This only kind of popped into my head during this viewing of The Phantom Menace, but I was thinking about how much more I would have enjoyed it if they had just aged the character of Anakin up a couple years.
Oh, yeah.
Like if this was a 12-year-old, I think, first of all, there's not a lot of great natural child actors who are 9, who have, like, unless they're coached very well by caring actors who are good with caring directors who are good with actors, which George Lucas is not.
Yeah.
So I feel like, but you can find good actors who are 12 who just can work with material and like figure things out on their own. So I feel like that would have worked. There's no narrative reason for him to be 9. Kids identify with kids who are older than them, not younger.
Yeah.
So I feel like that would have worked, and it would have cut out so much of like the tweeness about his character, because it's a big ask to be like, this is child Vader. He's silly and like just screams Yahoo a lot. I feel like preteen Vader is a little more like, you can tap into that, and then also you can tap into the darkness and like arrogance of the character a little bit, because by the time kids are 11 or 12, like they definitely have that. And also Anakin and Padme not as creepy.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, think about somebody like Noah Jupe, who's in Honey Boy at the moment. I mean, I think he's around 12, or was when they were filming it. Think about how amazing he would have been as Anakin. I think you're absolutely right about just those couple of years makes such a huge difference in performance level. And also, you're completely right about him and Padme, which is icky on 3,000 levels. And it's just, it didn't have to be as bad as it was.
Yeah, I think that Jake Lloyd has some good performance moments, but on this rewatch, I couldn't get what I heard on another podcast, Blank Check, where they described it as like you can so clearly tell that he's just reading the lines back as like George Lucas performed them for him, basically. So it's kind of like mimicry almost, and I don't know. But then so there's part of it that's just kind of like excruciating. But I think he has some good moments of like, the more serious moments, and he's having fun.
Let's be honest. It doesn't improve much once it turns into Hayden Christensen, though.
Hayden, the love of my life.
Like, I don't blame Jake Lloyd at all, because I think he does, like, especially when he's leaving home, like, that stuff is good.
That is sad.
Yeah, like, he's good there. I think it's just, like, adult actors have trouble working with George Lucas's dialogue and his direction. Like, I remember watching the documentary about making the original trilogy, and Harrison Ford was just, like, remembering working on the movies and just how frustrated he was that George would get frustrated when he would just be like, no, but it's all written there. Like, how come you can't just figure out what I mean? Like, why can't you just take the line reading and make it exactly what I want? It's like, because your dialogue's bad.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, I don't know. Jake Lloyd, I feel so bad. Like, I feel like the Phantom Menace aftermath is sort of what's the early roots of what has morphed into like this ugly side of Star Wars fandom, and just how cruel they were to both him and Ahmed Best is like really, really sad.
Yeah.
I don't really suggest people Google this, but what has happened to Jake Lloyd since he's become an adult is extremely, extremely sad and tragic, and it's just a kind of lesson about how child actors should be cared for and treated, and they're often just sort of tossed aside and told to cope with this absolutely insane stardom, as you say, at his age, which is, it's just too much for any child to take on.
Yeah, no, people were merciless, and I don't think anybody was, they were just so caught up in making the jokes about like the character and the actor and stuff. They weren't thinking about the fact this is a 10-year-old kid who has to go back to school and just face all of this, and so that's rough. But what do we like about the Phantom Menace? Let's try. What do we have that's good?
Shout out to Padme. Duel of the Fates, yes.
This is Padme at her best, like where she's I feel like the second and third movies, when they tie her into the relationship with Anakin, which I will talk about later, it's like equivalent to character assassination. I just get really, really mad when I think about it, because I think they take this character that has so much potential and is so cool and interesting, and they just sort of make her like a love-struck puppy dog, and it's rough for me, but she's really good here.
She's really good. I also just like every like mechanic of the governance of Naboo, and like the decoys and like youth legislative programs and every like nerdy thing. Like, if I ever made a Star Wars movie, I would make a like Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen style Winning London Model UN movie, but about the like youth legislative program on Naboo, and about like Padme and her decoys, because it's just like so cool. And it also is insane that they just like all didn't become queen and had to become decoys then. So I don't know. She's cool. She's 14 and rules planet, like goals. So I love.
But
Padme.
also, then I'm looking at like later in the film where she gets to go to the Senate and just like move for a vote of no confidence, and I'm like, maybe 14-year-olds shouldn't be like ruling planets and intergalactic senates. But yeah, she's so good, and I feel like there definitely should be like a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead story of this with the decoys, as like what's going on with them.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
Yeah. I also just like all the costumes. Like, it's just all of Padme's looks are incredible. I mean, the voice situation, like the deep, like speaking in deep voice, kind of weird on rewatch this time. And I know it's like, the part of the like pageantry of like being queen and presenting yourself and being formal and everything. But I'm like, just this is weird. This is jarring.
Yeah. I mean, I think they also the other reason they did that is to make it less obvious when there's a decoy,
Yes.
as opposed to Padme. Not that we didn't all know, but yeah,
So
the voice thing
funny.
is weird. I really noticed it this time as well. But I love that we've got Keira Knightley and Rose Byrne as Natalie's decoys in,
Yes.
a couple of the films. I think I really, really love that about it. And I was so proud of myself, like noticing when they switched. And I was like, I've spotted it. I've spotted it.
Yeah, I think consistently one of my favorite parts of the prequels is kind of building off what you were talking about with like Naboo and everything is a lot of like the worlds and the world building in these movies are so cool. Like they do, the underwater city where like Jar Jar comes from, and we
Yeah.
all we all know and love Jar Jar, but like there's just the design of the city and the design of Naboo and of Coruscant and the Senate and just the way everything is kind of designed. And I know it's all green screen, but just the concepts and like the look of these movies. Even like the original trilogy, you have the iconic locations, like you have Mos Eisley and you have the Death Star and you have Endor, but these movies, they just throw so many different planets and so many different aliens at you. And I think watching on a rewatch this time, I was really kind of like taken back by that like wow, he's really kind of expanding kind of the look of this universe. And I really, really love that about the prequels, especially.
Yeah, I will say that I think now that we have the sequel trilogy and that has kind of relied a lot on the original trilogy's imagery and has a very kind of like clean look and everything's very controlled and is all pretty uniform, that like it just makes the prequels stand out that much more for how unique and how weird they are at times. And I still really appreciate that. I think it's like it's interesting how differentiated they are from like the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy, because of how like expansive and cool everything is.
Mm, I agree. I think the world building, and I noticed some really, really cool creatures and quite minor roles this time as well. And they did, the creature design. I think that's obviously where Lucas's strength is, the planet design and the creature design.
Absolutely.
And I agree with Jeff that I love that underwater sequence. I obviously wish it wasn't all revolved around Jar Jar, but the whole concept of an underwater species, their city, and then the sequence where they're kind of escaping from it and there's giant fish swallowing them and that kind of
Hmm.
thing. I absolutely love that bit. Um, I Another strength or something else I really like about Phantom Menace, which I don't know, maybe some people get bored with, for me is the pod race. I
Yes.
like I think it's amazing. And yeah, it's just so exciting. I love all the different designs of all the different vehicles. Again, all the different aliens as well. And yeah, I just love it.
Oh yeah, the pod racing is so much fun. I remember, I think as a kid, besides obviously the Duel of Fates, which I'm sure we'll get to, like the pod racing was my favorite part of this movie. I had like every pod racing game they had for like PlayStation and stuff like that. My friends and I used to spend hours just, talking about our favorite racers and talking about, how much of a scumbag Sebulba is and things like that. But yeah, I know it is a bit of a long sequence. I kind of felt that length when rewatching it this time, but I think it's just so cool, and it's sure it's not really necessary, and it is really kind of weird that like Anakin's entire fate hinged around a race. Um, but I think for what it is, like it as far as just like pure entertainment goes, I think it's really really fun.
I really like the sound design of the pod racing scene. I think the sounds of all of the like engines whirring and the starting
Mm.
noises, I think that's really cool. I mean, I also played my fair number of hours on the Pod Racer Revenge game for PlayStation
Yeah,
2 when I was a kid. So I feel
yeah.
like those sounds are just like really ingrained, and then watching it now, like rewatching the scene, I'm just thinking about the game and like the landscape of the game and the course and everything. So yeah, the pod racing scene is good.
Whenever I watch Ben-Hur now, I sort of do the Greg Proops commentary over that scene, the chariot race scene, which like everyone around me loves. So, um, yeah, I feel like the length does show after you've seen it kind of a few times. It feels like a good time if it's your third or fourth watch to like go for a bathroom break or go get a drink or something. But I think as a like a cinematic moment, like watching that on the big screen for the first time, like that's amazing. So can't hit it too hard for, even though it is like a little long. One thing that I unironically love about The Phantom Menace is all the robots with like dumb affectations and like little bits of business that they do. They're just so silly, and there's no reason to give them these little quirks, like just the wait, no, you're under arrest, but they do anyway. It's just fun. I don't know. Maybe that's me.
No, the droids are so funny. I love, they're always little Roger, Roger. Just like the fact they didn't, like you said, they didn't have to give these, totally faceless, ununique, like little robots. They didn't have to give them personalities, but they did. And I think, like we said earlier, that's kind of a testament where like Lucas really shines with like design and kind of crafting like a mood for these movies, and not so much actually like writing anything. I think
writing characters and dialogue.
Writing, direction, all the important stuff he kind of lacks. But I think in crafting like personality and things like that, and giving things like a feel and making them kind of unique and weird, he's really good there. And I think the droids are a really, really good perception of that because they're just so goofy.
Duel of the Fates, I feel like is a good thing to kind of like sort of wrap up on. Because it's maybe it is like it's one of the best lightsaber battles in Star Wars. It was the best up until like maybe the last movie, and now there's competition.
Yeah, that's true.
The theme Duel of the Fates is one of the best pieces of music that John Williams has ever composed. I Will Die on This Hill. I love it. It's on like every one of my run playlists, and it just gets me really, really hyped. So when they used it in that like the one spot for Rise of Skywalker, my mind was blown. Okay, I will say Darth Maul, there's a lot of hype around him, obviously. I feel like most of like the boys that I was friends with loved Darth Maul and still love Darth Maul. And like, I get it. He looks cool, but like, he was just he was really for me. Like, I was just like, okay, he's there. He dies. That's it. He looks kind of scary, but like in the end is not effective at all. So I'll just say I'm maybe a little bit of a Darth Maul hater, but the scene is really good, and it's very, very sad when Qui-Gon dies. So very effective.
Yeah. Well,
On behalf of all boys, I will say that Darth Maul does rule.
That's why we have you here.
Yeah.
Provide.
I'm just here to be the actually guy. Duel of the Fates is the coolest. I still think it's probably my favorite lightsaber battle in the series. Which is something again I love with the prequels. It's just another like how much lightsaber action there is. Like in the original, it's kind of more like samurai-esque, where they're used kind of sparingly and more, they're slower paced, more thoughtful battles. Where in this, they're just swinging those things everywhere, and it's awesome. And as a kid, and even rewatching it, like I still like kind of was like bouncing up and down on my seat when Darth Maul like opens up like the second half of his lightsaber, and I was like, man, that's such a good moment. When like the music swells and he brings it down and he opens it up, and it's so cool. I love that moment. Which is why Darth Maul rules.
I mean, the lightsaber is very cool. Double-bladed lightsaber, it rules. But Darth Maul overall, he could come or go.
I really love Darth Maul, and I was very proud that obviously he was voiced by Peter Serafinowicz, who's British. I mean, I know there's a lot of British people in the Star Wars saga, but I just liked the fact that he was voiced by him. But Ray Parker is quite funny. Like I was kind of fixated on his ears this time, and just the fact that you can really see kind of like the human within. But I still love him as a character design. His makeup is just incredible. He's very cool. I know probably shouldn't end on a downer with the films, but I can't let our discussion of Phantom Menace go without talking about the bleeping midichlorians, which for me is worse than Jar Jar. Like, the worst thing about Phantom Menace is not Jar Jar for me. It is the Immaculate Conception with the midichlorians. That entire conversation between Qui-Gon and Anakin's mother, I just want to fold like within myself from the level of cringe. I can't tell you how much I hate it. I despise it with every fiber of my being.
And it like so clearly could have been avoided too. Like, I know obviously Lucas doesn't have a hand creatively in the new series, but you know, like in like The Last Jedi when Kylo was like, "Oh, you don't come from anybody." Like, they could have just done that with Anakin and like nobody would have questioned it, I don't think. Well, I mean, maybe some Star Wars fans would have, because some people are absolutely insane for this kind of stuff. But you know, it's one of those things where they're really just trying to hammer the point home. It's like, oh, here's this kid, and we're gonna make him to be little baby Jesus, and then he's gonna be little baby Satan, and it's not great.
I feel like that also ties into the prophecy, which is infuriating to me, how dumb the Jedi are in thinking like, oh, this kid's gonna bring balance to the Force. We are in power, so like obviously that means that you're going to lose power and then the other side is going to rise if there's going to be balance. So why would you want that? And I just think they're all really dumb and like borderline deserve to not be.
They are very
around.
dumb.
They are.
It's kind of it's like amazing that, like, you know, I bet after, you know, the original trilogy, everyone's like, oh, like I wonder how the Force works. Like, where does it come from? And there are all of these possibilities of how one person could have the Force and one person doesn't have the Force, or kind of in The Last Jedi now, anyone can have the Force, but this is what George Lucas decided on, to be like, actually, there are tiny specimens inside people's DNA. And they can be measured with like a glucose monitor, basically. And like, why is that the answer, George?
Just boil this down to a blood disease and move on. Like, forget the mystical like elements.
The mystical elements are like, you know, the power of like your own free will, or, you know, whatever. But
also
honestly,
I would say,
sorry, I'm making noises because it infuriates me that much.
No, I would say that at one point, this is kind of going off that, but also watching it this time, the idea that Anakin is the quote unquote chosen one kind of comes out of nowhere in this movie. Like, they're like, they know that he has a lot of midichlorians and that he's really strong in the Force, but then, you know, when Qui-Gon's dying, he's like, tells Obi-Wan, he goes, oh, he's the chosen one. I'm like, where the hell is this coming from? Like, we've seen nothing to indicate that he is the chosen anything besides that he likes pod racing. Like, I don't, like, he's a child. It's one of those things where, and again, we've talked about this a little bit, where it feels like it's happening because it has to, not because it makes a whole lot of plot sense. Like, if they're going to say he's the chosen one, I feel like he should have had something to do that kind of really shows that. You know, he just kind of has good instincts in this movie, and that's really it.
Well, don't forget, Shmi says that, or Qui-Gon says he has special powers, and Shmi says yes. So we have been told that he is the chosen one.
You're right. I take back that entire argument.
The crucial exchange of dialogue between Shmi and Qui-Gon Jinn.
That's what I get for doubting George Lucas's writing. Forgive me.
I also just feel like the entire concept of a chosen one runs counter to everything that sort of makes the idea of Jedi what they are. That just like there's this interconnectedness between everything, and there's energy constantly in flow, and some people can tap into it and some people can't, but there is a Jesus who is the most powerful and can do everything. Like
honestly, it makes me so angry. Exactly what you're saying. It's like the Jedi didn't need blimmin' midichlorians to come out of nowhere, and hate it.
Their whole thing is balance. Why would you then have one guy who has more than anyone else? That is like the opposite idea of balance. It's so bizarre.
Yeah. And even like kind of seeking into like Attack of the Clones a little bit here. If he's the chosen one and he's this so powerful being, like he gets his ass kicked a lot in this movie. Like Anakin, like he gets his arm cut off by Count Dooku. Like, but no, he's the most powerful Jedi who ever lived. Little things like that where I'm like, oh, like these are just little things that like, man, if we had a better writer, maybe these would have been a little more interesting.
He gets owned by one of those big pigs on Naboo. So yeah, take that, chosen one.
Super embarrassing for Anakin. I don't know. I also feel like the like if the Jedi truly believe that he is the chosen one and he is so powerful, but they also believe that he is too old to be trained and that he's too angry and like too attached to people, maybe don't train him. Like, you follow your instincts and just maybe think like, okay, this person is too dangerous, maybe we shouldn't make him even more dangerous. I don't know.
Yeah, the Jedi are not perfect and also very dumb. And maybe we're operating under a flawed system the whole time, and maybe Luke was right when he said it's time for the Jedi to end. So.
Agreed.
Hashtag Luke was right.
So good. Well, does anyone have any like last nuggets that you're gonna, be really upset if you don't get in about the Phantom Menace, or we good to move on to everyone's favorite, Attack of the Clones?
Oh, I have some thoughts.
I have some thoughts on Attack of the Clones. I just want to say the end when they like Boss Nass holds up the big like glowing purple thing, and how there's that one ceremony where like Trump did the exact same thing.
Oh yeah,
it's just like seared into my mind now, which is unfortunate. But I couldn't help but think of it at the very end. I was like, oh, this is rough. Also, okay, I do want to say this. The necklace that Anakin gives Padme is ugly.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And they go back to it so much in the prequels. I just have to say, it's a really ugly necklace, and he should have made something better. If he really loved her, he would have made something pretty good.
He would have gone to Jared. But, like, also, if you're thinking about it from a merchandising perspective, like, make a nice necklace that you can sell and everybody will buy because it's cool. Anyway.
Now you said he went to Jared, and I'm like picturing, because I hate myself, that like they do like an ad for Jared with like Jar Jar Binks, and it's all like, Esau went to Jared. And, like,
oh my god.
No.
And like I'm never gonna sleep again.
Oh boy. Well, all right, let's get into Attack of the Clones, episode 2 in our prequel trilogy. This is 2002, and it's set 10 years after The Phantom Menace, and the biggest cast addition is that we now have Hayden Christensen playing a 19-year-old Anakin Skywalker. There is unrest in the Galactic Senate. Several thousand solar systems have declared their intentions to leave the Republic. This separatist movement, under the leadership of the mysterious Count Dooku, dumb name, has made it difficult for the limited number of Jedi Knights to maintain peace and order in the galaxy. Senator Amidala, the former Queen of Naboo, is returning to the Galactic Senate to vote on the critical issue of creating an army of the Republic to assist the overwhelmed Jedi. But really what they're not talking about is this is like George Lucas's romantic fantasy a little bit, and it creeps me out a lot.
Yeah.
It's been 10 years and Natalie Portman hasn't aged a day. Aww.
She's only grown more beautiful, as we hear.
For a senator. Oh god.
Senators are ugly, you heard it here.
They only exist together to reproduce, and I feel like there's just... Padme would not be interested in this petulant little boy. Like, I know it's Hayden Christensen, like, obviously he's attractive, but, like, Ewan McGregor's right there. I feel like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, God bless them. If only they'd had like an ounce of chemistry together. I mean, can we just address the fact that Natalie Portman is one of our great actors? She is. I absolutely love Natalie Portman.
Same.
And her acting in so many roles, Jackie, etc. I don't need to go through them all.
Jackie.
she's not at fault here, can I just say? She is a great actor, and God bless her, having to work with the dialogue that she's got, the screen acting partner that she's got, it just was never going to work. I mean, I feel bad for Hayden Christensen, but honestly, just how wooden and I mean, we were texting while we were watching them, and I said, there was almost a convincing moment from Hayden Christensen then. And it's like the moments where you see him acting quite well really stand out because, they're very few and far between.
Yeah, I was rewatching Attack of the Clones, and I was just like, every scene in this movie feels like it was the first take. They just put it in the movie.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
it is, like, no one looks happy to be there. And it, like, boggles my mind. Like, Natalie Portman, like you said, she's a terrific actress, but she looks so bored. And it's almost hard to watch, especially during the, quote-unquote romantic scenes, where Anakin's talking about sand and fascism. And it's like, wow, this is
two favorite topics.
This is really who you're shacking up with.
Yeah, it is baffling. And we were texting about this. Of course, it's disturbing that after Anakin is like, yeah, fascism is cool, Padme is just like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna fly with this. This is still okay. And then even after he murders an entire village of sand people, she's like, well, you were angry, so it's okay. Like, inexplicable.
The order that things happen in, like you say, it's the juxtaposition all the time of Anakin saying the worst thing in the world or doing the worst thing in the world, and then immediately afterwards she either kisses him or agrees to marry him, and it's just like, why would you have those two scenes so close together?
I will say, like, 12-year-old me, the fireplace scene, I was like really into this. I was like, oh, this is hot. Like, they're at a fireplace and like this is like forbidden and they shouldn't be doing this, and like it's just thought it was really intense and intimate. And obviously watching it now as a full-grown adult, I'm like, this is really problematic in a lot of ways. But I loved it. Also, shout out to Padme's wardrobe in this movie. I think these costumes are like the best that she gets to wear.
Like I agree.
The ombre like pastel one that she wears on Naboo is really cool.
Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, the black one that she wears by the fireplace is also, I'm like, ooh, this is sexy.
George Lucas designed that himself, so
oh god.
Just
I will say
that.
though, it is really obnoxious when they are fighting in the arena and she just like gets a bare midriff.
I know.
Inexplicably. I'm like, we don't need this. She does not we don't need this. She's
already in a tight like white bodysuit.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't need to be strategically ripped.
Yeah.
Like a moment the battle starts.
Okay, I will say also the moment when they're gonna go into the arena and they like profess their love for each other. And Padme's like, our lives are about to be destroyed anyway, and the music swells. That moment still gets me. I'm like, oh, this is so good.
I mean, again, he has occasional glimmers. I mean, that part isn't too bad. Christensen's acting. He has occasional glimmers where he can do it. But you just, it's the frustration of, why can't you just put a bit more effort in and try a bit harder?
I feel like no one is well served acting wise by Star Wars, and I think, well, not no one, because we've learned recently that apparently you can be good in these movies. I guess no one is served well under George Lucas's direction.
Yeah, and his dialogue.
Yeah, so I feel like it really exposes your weaknesses, and I think that if you're a great actor, you're like just kind of decent. And if you're just an okay actor, you're in trouble because he is okay in other stuff. Like, he's fine in Shattered Glass but this
Jumper.
is bad. Jumper.
I mean, but think about something like Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford in the original trilogy. I mean, they were still working with Lucas's dialogue, but their chemistry and their acting, they really sold that romance. Well, so it can be done. Yes,
they had a little bit of off-screen
based in reality.
But the point is, you can make it work. You can try. On screen, you can have that chemistry and you can make it work somehow. But yeah, prequels are just disastrous in terms of those poor actors. I mean, Ewan does a good job. And there's a few people who come off well. The villains in the prequels are good. I mean, I think Christopher Lee, Ian McDermott, there are some people who come off better, but
I will say I feel that the prequels have been slightly ruined for me from just how much time I have spent on prequel memes where like every line I just know is a meme. Like this party's over during the like gladiator scene, and not this most recent rewatch, but the rewatch ahead of Last Jedi. I was watching with my roommate and she was like, "Okay, so you're going to have a 3 meme limit. Like you can point out 3 times per movie when it's a meme." And for Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, I think I stuck to that fairly well. But then for Revenge of the Sith, I was like, okay, but every line in this is a meme. So I cannot stick to this limit. I'm just like, yep, that's a meme. That's a meme. So my brain is broken and that's fine. Thanks, prequels.
Speaking of memes, let's talk about sand. And how much Anakin just doesn't like it, and that is the speech that gets him the girl. This mopey dude is standing overlooking a balcony going, "I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and it gets everywhere." And this senator was like, "Yep, this is who I'm going to shack up with."
Well, there was that weird back touch, so that clearly worked for her.
But he said that the weirdest thing is that he ends that speech by saying, "But here it's soft and smooth." And then yeah, like he gets the girl.
Yeah,
the whole thing is so bizarre.
Yeah, he like relates her to like the soft and smooth sand. I'm like, Anakin, like go read some Shakespeare, buddy. You need some work. Like you got to brush these lines up a little bit. It's bad.
I mean, to be fair, the Jedi are not really taught how to flirt, so he's kind of at a disadvantage there. But now that that's an excuse, it's really horrible.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I mean, I think all the good stuff that happens in this movie happens with Obi-Wan. When I was watching it, I was actually kind of surprised. I was, like you said, we were texting about this, and I was talking to Fiona about this, and we were saying like how much we kind of enjoyed like chunks of this movie, like Obi-Wan's subplot, his like whole like detective almost kind of subplot is pretty fun. I mean, he's going to bars, he's talking to people, and then when he ends up on Camino and he sees the clones and he has that little showdown with Jango Fett out on the like the ship platform, like that's pretty fun stuff. And I mean, at least I thought so. It's not like you said, it's not like the greatest plotting, but I thought it was pretty fun to have Obi-Wan, kind of do something not in relation to Anakin. I mean, obviously Anakin's plotline suffers big time as a result of it, but I do think there's some fun stuff.
I think I had wiped most of this film from my memory, to be honest, because I had Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith, set solidly in my head. But if you'd asked me much about Attack of the Clones, I couldn't have told you much about it, apart from the obvious, like Erin was saying, the obvious memes. But watching it this time, I enjoyed it way more than I was expecting to. And a lot more happens than my memory had kind of allowed me to sort of cling on to, and it was a lot more entertaining than I remembered it being.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen Attack of the Clones the most out of any of the prequels, which I feel like I am definitely the outlier here, because it was the first one I saw in theaters, and I just have a weird sense of attachment to it. And I mean, I do prefer it to Phantom Menace just because so much more happens. Like you were saying, Fee, like there's so much more action already, like immediately in the beginning of Attack of the Clones compared to Phantom Menace. Like there's the whole chase through Coruscant to get like Sam Wessel, and it starts with an assassination attempt, and just I feel like while it kind of lags in the middle, there's just so much more that kind of hooks you really early on. And I do like Obi-Wan's attack with them. Obviously, Dexter Jettster, have to shout him out. Love the diner scene. I love all of the Coruscant stuff. I think Coruscant is really interesting, and it's kind of a bummer that we haven't gotten to go back there in the sequel era just to see like what the state of it is now. Because it has so many different levels of like, obviously you have like the Senate and the Jedi and the kind of like higher ups, and then you have this like seedy underworld of like crime and bounty hunters and everything like that. So I think the worlds too in Attack of the Clones are really interesting. I really like Geonosis, looks really cool. You have Camino, like it's another expansion of what what planets could be in the Star Wars universe. So I think that's really cool. I really like the chase scene between Obi-Wan and Jango Fett with like the seismic charges. I still think those are really cool. Like it's more fun to me than Phantom Menace. And I know this is just kind of my set in my own mind where I'm like very bored by Phantom Menace, and this one I'm like, okay, yes, it's time for the fun. This is where the fun begins, literally. Yeah, I know it has many issues, and I understand why people don't like it, and obviously it's bad, but I also love it, so.
Yeah, I think the last bit on Geonosis is really fun, with the whole kind of arena thing, and they have the fun little escape, and then, the clones show up and all that, and that's really fun. And you get lots of cool moments with people like Mace Windu and stuff like that. But then after that, the movie goes on for like 25 more minutes. And like
It has like 2 endings.
It just doesn't know when to stop. Like,
yeah.
The
fight with Dooku is so long.
And like nothing becomes of it. It's like Lucas just wanted to have Yoda do a sword fight, which again, I'm not really complaining because it's cool and it's fun to see Yoda in action. But like, you don't have to have this. It just, you have this huge climactic battle, and then, like you said, there's another half hour of stuff.
I guess what I want to throw in, which is something that I was like gonna interject before my microphone stopped, was how Dex is like my hero, and I love all of the like little bits with Obi-Wan. I feel like Ewan is the only one having fun in this movie for the most part.
Yes.
And I really love, it feels like for George Lucas, sort of subtle character building with Obi-Wan, like his scene with Dex in the diner, and how it's kind of showing how he's not just like a typical Jedi, because he is willing to go to these different like back channels and get information. And in the novelization of Attack of the Clones, like it talks about that stuff that he got from Qui-Gon, and I just love it. So also Dex is just like a great character. His voice is so much fun.
Hey, old buddy.
Difference between knowledge and wisdom.
Also, I like the line that he says about how big your pocketbook is, because pocketbook is such an old-timey like human word in our world. It's just funny when those words are in Star Wars, or like, you know how I think people have brought this up when people say like what the hell, or I'll see you in hell, like there's a concept of hell in Star Wars. Or like, praying and like concept of God, like how does that all fit in? Because, there's the Force, but like, is there a God in Star Wars? It's just funny. But yeah, pocketbook made me laugh because it's like, who has a purse in Star Wars?
I spent so much time, like, in both of these movies trying to solve the conundrum that is their relationship, and like how you could make it not as weird, and still get the end result of them having a baby.
Two babies.
And I was like, I feel like that it needs to either be like a fiery, borderline dysfunctional relationship where it's like, yes, they both know this is not good, but like they've got chemistry, so they keep coming back to it. But then the problem with that is, of course, the fact that there is no chemistry. So you can't play it that way. But then I was also playing with the idea of having, in Revenge of the Sith, Padme sort of realize on her own independently that she needs to be the grown-up, and that, like, this is not going to work, and that she doesn't love him because he's really annoying. That obviously didn't happen. But I was just like, if we could just figure out a way to make something happen.
Once you started the relationship off in Phantom Menace, where she's the older sister and Jake Lloyd is like the little brother, once you start it off like that, you can never recover from that point. So there's no, it doesn't matter what happens in Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith. You've already established them as like this older sister, younger brother relationship. So everything after that is going to seem creepy and weird.
Yeah, it just like leans so much into like she's kind of mothering him because he lost his mother at an early age, and it's like it's such a weird dynamic, and it's so gross.
The first thing she says to him at the start of Attack of the Clones is, "Oh, you'll always be that little boy back on Tatooine to me."
Yeah. Would still hit though.
That's the start. That's the start of their romance.
Yep.
She's like into it though.
Yeah.
Into it.
It's also supposed to be secret, and it's like probably the worst kept secret in the galaxy. Like Obi-Wan,
Yeah.
Obi-Wan totally knows that he has the hots for Padme. Like at multiple times during the movie, he's like, "Dude, like stop being a baby. Just like leave her. We have a mission." He's like, "No, I love her," and Obi-Wan's like, "No," and like it's just on so many levels it doesn't make sense.
About how intoxicating she is. Ugh, gross. To Obi-Wan, it's like, no, come on, man. I feel like the Jedi are all super oblivious, though. Just with the relationship, of course, but then also in Phantom Menace when like Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan just like don't realize that they're decoys. I feel like they're just like, oh, we've been with like the Queen the whole time, and feels like they should have maybe been clued into that a little bit.
Right, and if if Yoda,
that's so funny.
If Yoda can like feel when Anakin is in pain from things like, you know, from his mother dying and then him murdering an entire village of sand people, like can he also then feel that he like loves Padme and cares for her deeply? Like why can he only feel the like feelings of pain? And isn't he in pain because of Padme? Because he's in agony being around her? So doesn't Yoda feel that too? Like when is Yoda checking in on Anakin's feelings? Like when is he tapping into that?
Does he just have a constant pipeline? He's like, oh, Anakin's horny now. Great.
Yeah.
Fun.
Very confusing.
There's a lot happening.
Yeah. So many questions.
Is there anything we feel like we didn't touch on with Attack of the Clones? I feel like I missed some of it because I was trying to figure out what the hell happened in my computer. But
shout out to the best Jedi in the battle that we never get to really see in the Jedi Council. Like we get to see Kit Fisto, Ki-Adi-Mundi. Like we get to see this kind of random guys. The big Jedi fight is cool because it's just like the fact that there, you know, in the original trilogy there are really no Jedi. There's like 2 that you see ever, and then in Attack of the Clones it's just like thousands. And it's cool to see them at the height of their power, and obviously very sad when they all get murdered. So.
Yeah, I felt like in the battle scene on Geonosis, some of the shots where they were doing, like they would go from a wide shot and then they would cut to like a 2-shot of a Jedi fighting like a bad guy. And some of, especially with the human ones, the human Jedi, it looked very like their costuming was very cheap. Like they clearly spent all their money on doing like Ki-Adi-Mundi and Kit Fisto and like all of the like intricate Jedi, and then with the human ones they were just like, well, we're putting you in like a Kmart Jedi costume and like have fun. I like couldn't stop noticing that every time they did a close-up on one of the human Jedi. So
also
that was
I had a question with the ending, and I haven't really looked into this, but at the end when Dooku flees to Coruscant, when he has the Death Star plans, does that like break continuity with Rogue One? I'm not fully up to date on the history, but I feel like I thought the whole thing with Rogue One was that Jane's father designed the Death Star, but like if Dooku already has it, you know, presumably years before that happens, like how does that work at all? Maybe I missed something, but I don't know. To me, I was like, I don't know if that lines up at all. Weird.
Well, didn't Jin's father, Galen Erso. I was like, Mads Mikkelsen, Galen Erso. Didn't he start working like with them much earlier in the development? Like, I don't know how long the development process of the Death Star really was. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I'm saying this is probably like a super unimportant plot point, but I was watching it, I was like, I don't think that lines up that much, but I could be wrong.
Right, because it doesn't start getting constructed until like the end, or it's in construction, I guess, at the end of Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
I don't know. I started to read Catalyst, the like spin-off novel about Galen Erso, and it's very boring, and there's a lot of like technical terms and just like science stuff that I don't really care about, and all I really cared about was like his bromance with Orson Krennic. And that is in there too. But I didn't finish it, so couldn't place it timeline wise.
Well, I feel like this is
Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I feel like this is also the franchise that had twins kiss.
Yeah, true.
Like, and then, yeah. So I think there's certain instances of like, yeah, if we knew we were gonna be making like this story later, we probably would have changed this part of it. I can't read any of the novelizations though because I read all the old ones and then they were rendered non-canonical, and so I'm like still really mad about that. Like all that knowledge is just useless now.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I go to the Jedi Prince Wikipedia like fairly often because I just am thinking about that series all the time and how it doesn't matter.
It's so good though.
It's so good though. Ken Palpatine.
Cool. So, Attack of the Clones done and dusted. We're feeling good.
Done
Yeah.
and dusted.
All right. So our last film is Revenge of the Sith, 2005, taking place 3 years after Attack of the Clones. War! Exclamation point. The Republic is crumbling under attacks by the ruthless Sith Lord Count Dooku. There are heroes on both sides.
Oh boy.
Very fine people on both
Oh god.
Evil is everywhere. In a stunning move, the fiendish droid leader General Grievous has swept into the Republic capital and kidnapped Chancellor Palpatine, leader of the Galactic Senate. As the Separatist droid army attempts to flee the besieged capital with their valuable hostage, 2 Jedi Knights lead a desperate mission to rescue the captive Chancellor. Oh. There we are. This feels like the most action-y
Yes.
crawl of the prequels. There's like no blockades, no like diplomatic negotiations. Well, I guess this is sort of, but
Aggressive negotiations.
oh god. Let's just stop in the middle of the battle to just have that like flirty exchange.
I do love how this movie opens though. Like it's so much. They open up with like the fighter over the planet, and then you follow the 2 Jedi fighters, and they do the really cool move where they go up and they dive down, and there's like the entire battle below them. And I was just like, man, this movie, like you said, it's so actiony. It is like the most immediately exciting of the prequels by like a country mile. It's so much fun.
Yeah. I think everyone agrees, well, everyone must surely agree that this is by far the strongest of the prequel trilogy. It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it holds up well against even the originals and the sequels. Because there's so much going on. The ending is amazing. And also it has real, finally we've actually got some stakes we can invest in, some real drama. Even Hayden Christensen, bless him, is actually doing some good work in this film. And you start to actually feel for him for the first time and actually start to, he's going through all this struggle, this torment, being torn in both 2 directions. And for the first time, I actually felt invested in him as a character. And there's so much good stuff in this movie, especially Order 66 and the younglings, which I can barely talk about without getting choked up.
It's so good. And it's so funny just thinking back, like, this was the end, right? So this is going to be the end. So, like, every minute I just remember savoring and just being like, there's no more Star Wars after this. It's done. This is the last one. And it really still kind of feels like that. And everything just seems like it matters so much and is so high stakes and the pressure's on. And it's just like, well, we got to wrap up everything. We have to know how everything ends. And like, yeah, some of the things are tied up maybe too neatly, or we didn't really need to know some things, but it's so epic. And the battle on Mustafar is so good. Like, it's just, obviously Anakin Padme is the weakest, I think, in this movie.
Yeah.
Because Padme is just like pregnant and sad and brushing her hair. And that's all she gets to do. And wearing a full set of pearls to bed. Insane. That is deranged. But it's so good. I love this movie.
I like it a lot. I just wish that there were things they had done differently. Like, I just wish that they played up a little bit more Anakin's other reasons for joining the Sith rather than, like, putting everything on Padme. Because I feel like the relationship's not strong enough to bear that weight, narratively speaking. And I think it's, like, it would be cool to have played into more the idea that the Jedi have been mistrusting him since he was 9. And, like, no matter what he has done since then, they still don't trust him. And I feel like that would make you more willing to, like, betray them. And I think that is a more, like, compelling piece of the puzzle rather than just being like, I'm in love with Padme. This guy says he can save her because I had a dream that she died. That just feels silly to me. And also, like, yeah, he is sort of fascist and, like, does believe in an authoritarian government. And I feel like they try to avoid forcing Anakin to, like, take responsibility for his actions. Like, there's always another person who's responsible for him doing, like, the bad things that he does.
Yeah.
Because I think they kind of want to play it both ways, where, like, he is the sympathetic lead, but he's also obviously Darth Vader. And so
they have to make him redeemable because they have to have his Force Ghost come back later and smile around the campfire or whatever. So that there always has to be like a glimmer with Anakin. There always has to be. You have to feel sorry for him, and I think generally it does. Like Revenge of the Sith does do that well. You know, it is quite complex trying to create one of the best villains ever created, while at the same time trying to get you to, you know, retain some feelings of sympathy for him. It's difficult, and obviously it's not completely pulled off, but you know, I think they do quite a good job of it.
It's difficult that it has to do that and deal with that, like, you know, both elements of his personality, while also telling the story of, like, the fall of the Republic and the rise of the Empire and, like, the rise of a dictatorship.
Yeah.
Like, it's so focused on, you know, this one character and developing this one character and, you know, his origins, but then the background story is so much bigger than that too, that it is kind of amazing that it was able to be pulled off in any way. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we had to see how Anakin became Darth Vader, but then we also had to see how the Republic became the Empire. Like, both sides of that story. So, yeah, it's a lot. It's doing a lot.
I feel like it sounds like I'm shitting on Revenge of the Sith, but I have, like, no problems with the movie as it stands. I feel like anything that I'm nitpicking about is stuff that is a problem with the 3 movie narrative that's just sort of coming to a head in Revenge of the Sith, because that's where it has to be, like, pulled off. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like there are these melodramas where everything feels, like, faded because of the way that the characters are, like their personalities or just, like, the choices they make. But in this, it's not so much doomed as it is frustrating that everything is just being pushed towards this inevitable conclusion, and things are happening because they have to happen and less because they actually make sense, and that everybody's just sort of like a puppet, just being like, okay, this is where you need to end up at the end of this movie, and however we can get you there, that's how we're going to get you there. And I think they mostly pull it off. I think, like, with very few exceptions, it pretty much works. But then there are sometimes I'm just like, oh, I just wish this made more sense because I want this to be perfect.
Yeah, I think for me, like, that last battle between Anakin and Obi-Wan works so much. One, because it's awesome, and two, because this movie did a lot of legwork and kind of establishing more of a relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan. Like, it didn't really happen in episode 2. They're apart for a lot of the movie, but in this movie early on, you know, they establish, you know, they have banter, they have this cool relationship going on. They have this it's almost like father-son in a way. And in the way that, you know, he's like, when they're in the elevator early on, and, you know, when they're talking about R2, and Obi-Wan's like, what was R2 doing? And Anakin's like, he's doing his best. And Obi-Wan's like, I didn't say anything. Like, they have this good back and forth, and the relationship gets established a lot in this movie, which is a lot of legwork. And I think it's part of the reason that final battle works so well, and why that betrayal feels so real for Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Also because, you know, Ian McGregor is really, really selling it. And
Yeah.
I think, again, I could talk about that last scene forever because I think it's so good. But I think a lot of the Anakin and Obi-Wan relationship in this movie is really good.
Yeah, I agree.
That last battle is so rough. Ewan breaks my heart. I can't.
It's so sad.
You were my brother. Like, it's really interesting because I think it does say something about the quality of, like, acting, because the dialogue in this entire scene is written by the same person.
Yeah.
But then there's lines where it's just like, you will not take her from me. And it's just like, I don't know.
You were the chosen one.
But like he is good. Like I feel like
Yeah.
Ewan pulls off all the lines, and then
Yeah.
there's some where Hayden's just like, "What was that decision? Like who told you to make that decision with the line delivery?" I straight up like cannot watch the youngling scene because
Oh.
this is dark, but like it just reminds me of like substitute teaching and having to do like active shooter drills and having all the kids hiding, and I'm just like, oh god, I can't watch this.
Oh. I mean, the kid actor isn't the best actor in the world, but it doesn't matter. It is utterly, utterly heartbreaking. It's just the wide-eyed innocence of the way he's talking to Anakin, and you just know what's about to happen. It's horrible. It's one of the most brutal things to happen in any kind of big, franchise that's essentially meant for kids. I think it's unbelievably brutal. The younglings. I remember being so shocked when I saw it the first time. Revenge of the Sith was one of my favourite ever cinema going experiences, by the way. I went to this special cinema they have in London, in Portobello, where there's these types of cinemas weren't very prevalent at the time, but it had like leather sofas. It's a special. It's called the Electric. And then my friends and I went to the pub afterwards to dissect in minute detail everything that happened in Revenge of the Sith. And we talked for so long about Order 66 and the younglings because we were absolutely shocked and devastated by it.
It makes me wonder if, like, George Lucas put them in the movies, like in episode 2 when Yoda is training them.
I think he definitely
for the only purpose of killing them. Like that is sadistic.
Yeah. I 100% think he did do that.
It's ridiculous. My nephew like wants to see the new Star Wars and he hasn't seen any, and he's like 5 or 6. And I was talking to my stepsister and I was like, I don't know, are they going to be too scary? Like, is Darth Vader scary to a little kid? Like, I feel like I'm just so desensitized to him now, and I'm like, yep, that's my guy. And that I don't think I would be scared. But there are so many other little bits that are traumatizing potentially, and like the younglings getting murdered is like would be horrific for a small child to see, unless they just like wouldn't understand it. But I don't want to have to be the person to explain what is happening there. So
that was the thing. Like as a kid, I don't really think what was happening in that scene really kind of landed with me. Just because, or at least, I mean, you know what's happening, but you don't really kind of understand just how awful it is. I don't think. On the rewatch, I was like, holy, I can't, like, I honestly, I'm with Fiona, I couldn't believe they put this in a Star Wars movie. Because it is just the darkest thing. It's crazy.
I think they get away with it because I think it hits harder for adults because like little kids don't think they're ever going to die. So it's just like watching it as an adult and seeing like, oh my God, these little tiny children who can't tie their shoes are about to get like mowed down is like very difficult. But I think if you're making this movie predominantly for children, like I don't think they would be as affected by that as an adult would be watching it.
I think I agree that they wouldn't understand what is about to happen because for us it's our imagination, and particularly as you were saying with today's climate, like, you know, we are processing that scene in the context of what's going on in, you know, schools today. Whereas I think a kid watching it doesn't, because it stops short of actually showing you, you know, the violent act. I don't think a kid is necessarily comprehending what's about to happen, and then it's just reported afterwards, you know, not the younglings. But for us, our imagination fills in the gaps, and that's worse in a way.
Can I tell you about the first time I saw this movie and I missed like almost all of Order 66?
Oh God.
So I think I had gone to one of those screenings where they were doing like Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith. So I'd sat through 2 movies already. By this point, I really, really needed to pee. So I like got up and left. I was like, I can't wait anymore. I'm gonna die. And then I got back and I was like, what did I miss? And the first time I was like, so then I had to rewatch it like in theaters again to get the actual experience. And I kind of wish I missed it, even though it's a great sequence. It's so heartbreaking, but it's also really sad.
Yeah, it's so well done. I think it's one of the best sequences in, you know, the saga, to be honest.
Yeah,
Yeah, like, because not just with the younglings, but with all the other Jedi
Yeah.
who are, like,
It's-
on their own in different places.
Yeah, it's brutal.
yeah. I
Ugh.
mean, rewatching the prequels, I think it's really clear that Lucas made the first two movies just so he could make Revenge of the Sith. Like, you could tell, like, he put kind of like everything into this movie. Like, there are just so many great sequences, like the Order 66 and the final fight, and even, just the opening sequence where, Anakin kills Count Dooku. He just cuts his head off because the Chancellor tells him to, which is, again, as a kid, I was just like, what? Like, he can't do that. And, like, it's clear that, this is the story that Lucas was really, really trying to tell. And obviously, because it's the most exciting part. But it works really well in the sense where it's like everything has been leading to this. Like, there are lots of things happening that have real weight and consequences. And this is like one of the things I love about this movie. And also the memes.
Yeah, this definitely, just knowing George Lucas and the type of stories that really, like, get his motor running, this is the melodramatic space opera that he was like, if I can just get to this point and, like, tell this story, I will be happy. I think you're definitely right.
Also, shout out to how depressing it is when the Senate finally falls. And I
Yeah.
remember
Oh, Jesus.
I literally wrote down in my diary after I saw the movie, so this is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause. I was like, oh, that's a great line.
It is. I mean, for all the times that we talk about Lucas's dialogue, I actually think that's a genuinely good line.
Yeah.
It's
such a good moment. It's so depressing, obviously, and
Yeah.
especially now. But I remember thinking that line many times on a certain night in November of 2016 as well. But it is just, it's kind of amazing also how convoluted Palpatine's plan was, like, all along.
Yes.
It's like to just be this, like, Sith Lord operating in the background, but then also be, like, engineering the downfall of the Republic and, like, taking all of this power, and, like, I don't know, everything had to happen exactly as it happened, obviously, but it's like, what if something went wrong? Like,
Yeah.
what if he had been found out any earlier? If they had bothered to, check at all that maybe this guy has a similar voice to
It would be
Chancellor.
super crazy. It would be super crazy for politicians to have, like, a 30-year long game in place that only manages to succeed due to everyone's blind faith in democracy. That would be pretty crazy if that happened. Sorry.
Well,
I'm trying to figure out how to follow that up.
took a turn.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, things have taken a dark turn.
Okay, I do want to say the scene where, like, Anakin does, like, pledge his allegiance to Palpatine is, like, really sad and really heavy, because you see him in that moment having to make that choice of, like, Mace Windu, and you see him say, like, oh, he must stand trial, but then, like, he just, is gonna do it all for Padme. He has to do it, do it for her. And just, like, in that moment when he realized, obviously not when he says, what have I done, because that is horrendous, but, like, the pain on his face, and, like, it's just, oh, he finally got him, and you don't want him to do it, but he's gonna do it, and it's just, it's rough.
Yeah, he's like this character at a crossroads at so many different points in the films, and then this is where he, like, finally takes that step where it's like, okay, it's gonna be really, really hard to come back from this, and I think he realizes it then.
I do think out of all the emotions that Hayden Christensen can't sell, I think anguish, when he gets into that kind of extreme anguish towards the end, he is actually selling that quite well. And the final scene with Ewan as well, where, it's his desperation when he's crawling up the coals kind of thing out of the lava. He does sell all of that quite well.
And his decision to make that jump when Ewan's like, don't do it.
I have
like,
the high ground.
ground. Don't try it. And he can't stop himself. Like, he has to do it. And obviously it ends badly, but yeah. I mean, he has good moments. He really does. Like, it's not all bad. They all have their moments.
I think the one thing that bothers me the most about this movie, and this is such a small thing, is going back to that scene where he pledges himself to Palpatine. Like, I remember before I watch this movie, seeing stuff where they're hyping it up. It's like, oh, you're gonna find out like why he's called Darth Vader, and like he might as well have just picked the word Vader out of a hat with like the way that he gives it to him. It's like, I will dub thee Darth Vader, and that's it. And I'm just like, okay. I mean, it's cool for that. It's cool to have that moment, but I was just like, man, I wish there had been sort of any whim or reason. I feel like all these like the Sith
Like
Lords.
Solo.
Yeah. Oh my. Let's not start. It's like all these Sith Lords have like pretty cool, if a little bit cheesy, names. It's like, how do those get decided? Do they have like a bingo, like rolling like a ball in a cage sort of thing with a bunch of evil words in it, and they just kind of pull one out? Like, these are things I want to know. But I will say one. I did want to make another point about Ian McDiarmid in this movie is like one of the MVPs because he is just absolutely chewing scenery in like every scene that he's in. His performance is so over the top and so fun, and there's so many obviously meme moments when he's doing the with the lightning, but no, and it's just it's so campy, but I just love it so much.
Okay, to this day, I still do not understand what the like weird bubble opera thing that they're at during the Darth Plagueis scene is. Like, what is that art form? Why is that what they're watching? What is happening there? Like, and also that they're at this performance, and I know they're in their own box or whatever, but that they're just talking through it. Like, that is so disrespectful to whatever orbs are happening at the time, and like the people around them must be like, these guys just won't shut up. Like, what the hell? I don't need to hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. I'm here to watch my like weird orb opera.
I wish someone in like the next row like shushed him, and that was like the undoing of Palpatine's plan. Like, he never got the whole story out because someone was like, shh.
He was like, oh, I'll tell you later, and then like he forgot about it. Man.
Good times. I've also seen like the thing where it's like that plan also could have been undone, where at the end, Obi-Wan is like, Anakin, Chancellor Palpatine is evil. If Anakin was like, oh shit, you right, and like that was it. Like, that's the whole movie and it's done. And there's no more original trilogy. No more Darth Vader. Just listen to your friend, man.
Yeah.
Oh.
People should listen to Obi-Wan more because he's almost always right and just doesn't get listened to.
Yeah, except for like the whole just like lying to Luke throughout the original trilogy, but beyond that,
sure, and forgetting R2's entire existence.
Yeah,
Which makes me sad.
Friends.
I'm thinking of, okay, we didn't talk about Padme's death scene, and I feel
God.
like we should.
Oh boy.
Because first of all, obviously, like, dying of a
bah.
broken heart is bullshit. But then her last words are like telling Obi-Wan how Anakin's really not that bad, and I'm like, you're not gonna like say anything like about your children, like anything, like make sure you take care of these kids, like tell them their mother loves them.
Don't split them up.
No. Don't split them up. It's not the Parent Trap, okay? We're not doing that.
Yeah. Oh, I can barely talk about that final scene because it's so annoying. And yeah, there's the two biggest things are the dying of the broken heart and the splitting up of the twins. I hate it so much. Hate it. It's just, I mean, again, we have to, really forcefully engineer these things to happen so that the start of the originals makes sense. And that is the only reason we're watching these ridiculous events happen.
I mean,
would it have been like a bridge too far if they just had Anakin kill Padme? I mean, he pretty much does, but then they like walk it back and they're like, no, she died of a broken heart. I feel like commit to that? I don't know.
Yeah, they definitely should have committed to that because it also just, on a number of levels, dying of a broken heart doesn't make any sense in this context, considering that Anakin only has like 2 limbs by the time the movie's over and he's still alive. Like, he's been in lava,
Right.
He got cut in half, he lost an arm. Like, this dude is nothing, but then Padme dies because she's sad? Like,
Yeah.
Because she's a weak woman and she can't handle her emotions. So,
And it's like Anakin already thinks that he killed Padme. Like why not just have it be, Occam's razor, the simplest thing happened. Like, that would make his downfall even that much more tragic, where he did everything to try and save her and then he actually did kill her. Like,
Yeah.
that is more poetic than Actually, he didn't kill her, and she died of a broken heart. But then he never like learns that. So what is the point? Is that just for us then to be like, oh, Anakin isn't that bad? When we've seen him choke her out. Like
he choked his wife out, but like he didn't kill her.
We were there.
And don't forget the dead kids. Like, this is not a good guy anymore.
Yes, he personally murdered so many people. Ugh. Not a good guy.
No.
But he gets that cool.
Who's a good guy who we haven't talked about? Jimmy Smits. Bail Organa.
Yay!
Aww.
Good guy.
He's a good guy.
Good dad.
But then it's sad because of like Alderaan. I'm just like, no.
Yeah, you're right. It is. Yeah, that is.
But he is very good. The what is it? The battle between Palpatine and Yoda in the Senate is like an interesting set piece.
It is a
but
battle.
I also feel like I just don't understand. I get the idea of like wanting to see Yoda in battle, but I also don't care about it, and I feel like they keep showing him getting beaten by people, and that like kills his brand a little bit. I don't know. I feel like he just keeps losing.
Baby Yoda stays undefeated though.
Yeah, he's an MVP, but
I love seeing Yoda in battle. It's like I really like it when he fights Dooku, and you see him like spiraling through the air, and and also I love his little angry face as well, and his determined face when he's using the Force to like move objects and stuff. And I think like again, it's such clever creature design and how they manipulate his face into, I'm going to be angry now. I'm going to be determined. And yeah, I love Yoda.
I like silly, childish Yoda. Like, that's my favorite Yoda.
When he's like,
just like, mine.
Yeah, he gets a sense of humor back by the time it's Empire Strikes Back. But at the end of Revenge of the Sith, he has taken some hits, so I get it.
That's another thing that drives me up a wall, is like he and Obi-Wan are just like, well, we lost, so I guess we'll just abandon everyone and go into hiding for 20 years. Like, we'll emerge when the moment is right. And it's like 20 years from now? Like, you've just been letting this fascist regime do whatever they want for that long.
Yeah.
Jedi give up really easily.
They lose one time and they're like, well, guess I can never do that again. Guess I'm done for life. Guess I'm gonna go live on a weird island and drink milk from a boob.
Well, with that in mind, does anyone have any final thoughts on Revenge of the Sith? I feel like that's a really good note to end.
Shout out to the first like weird Tarkin stand-in at the end of Revenge of the Sith. That I'm like, is that guy mostly CGI or is that just like another actor? Like, it definitely is out of place. I mean, not as like uncanny valley as this Rogue One, but I did notice at this time I was like, that's not really great. Let's just stop doing Tarkin. Like, we're done.
Yeah. let him rest in peace, for goodness sake.
Yeah. It's just so funny that like I wish I could go back to like 12-year-old me and be like, you don't need to be sad because you have no idea that there's going to be Star Wars forever. So much of it. You know what I mean? Like, I just remember being like, well, that was it. There's just that my life is done and there's no more and it's these 6 movies and that's it. And it's okay. Like, I eventually, made peace with it. Then now it's just like, we're going to die and Star Wars will be eternal. So it's going to be okay, 12-year-old Erin.
I guess, should we maybe do like a final ranking of all of them just to see where we all stand? Can we do that? Is that
of all Star Wars movies or just the prequels?
Of all the movies.
Oh, okay. Boy.
I can do this. I just did this the other day.
Take a sec if you need it.
I will just quickly get my list up.
Let me get Letterboxd pulled up here.
I'm gonna
same here.
Yeah.
Because I have a list.
Lists on lists. Woo.
Okay. I have mine. Do you want me to go?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, so my ranking is Empire Strikes Back is number one. I mean, big shock and horror to to everyone, I'm sure. Number two is New Hope. Number three is Force Awakens. Number four is The Last Jedi. Force Awakens and Last Jedi are pretty much equal for me, but the only reason I put Force Awakens slightly ahead of Last Jedi is because Harrison Ford is in it.
Fair.
Fair.
Respect.
Not gonna fight that.
Number 5 is Return of the Jedi. Number 6 is Revenge of the Sith. Number 7 is Phantom Menace. Number 8 is Solo. Number 9 is Rogue One. And number 10 is Attack of the Clones. But this was before my most recent rewatch, and I would put Attack of the Clones ahead of Rogue One now, and probably even Solo, to be honest.
Wow.
I don't like the two spin-offs very much at all. I liked Solo more than Rogue One, but I didn't like either of them very much.
Okay. Respect. That's fair. Yeah, I feel like this most recent rewatch has sort of changed things a little bit with the prequels for me. No, yeah, I guess I have. Jeff, do you want to go? Are you good?
Yeah, sure. I got mine right here. So my ranking is I have Empire Strikes Back at number 1. Number 2, I also have A New Hope. Number 3, I have The Last Jedi, because that movie's awesome. Number 4, I have The Force Awakens. Number 5, I have Revenge of the Sith. Number 6, Return of the Jedi. 7, Rogue One. 8, Solo. 9, Phantom Menace. And 10, Attack of the Clones.
Okay. It's pretty good.
Erin, what's
All
your
right,
take?
shaking it up.
Oh boy.
Not really. Kind of. But number 1, Empire Strikes Back. Number 2, The Last Jedi.
Nice.
In this house,
Yeah.
we love The Last Jedi. Number 3, A New Hope. Number 4, The Force Awakens. Number 5, Return of the Jedi. Number 6, Revenge of the Sith. Number 7, Attack of the Clones. 8, Rogue One. 9, Solo. 10, Phantom Menace. So, really, I was dreading watching Phantom Menace again for this rewatch. If I could choose to have not watched it, I probably would have just started with Attack of the Clones with my rewatch. So, yeah.
I would have said the same about Attack of the Clones, but I'm glad I did give it a fair shake this time, yeah. Because I've really changed my mind on it, to be honest. I enjoyed it so much more than I thought I would.
Yeah.
My take, like, between Attack of the Clones and the Phantom Menace, because they are my bottom two, I feel like Attack of the Clones has the greater heights, but it also has the deeper lows.
Yeah.
That's true.
In-
That's fair.
So I struggle between the two. So my ranking is Empire Strikes Back, number 1. 2 is The Last Jedi. 3 is A New Hope. 4 is Return of the Jedi. 5 is The Force Awakens. 6 is Rogue One, because I like Rogue One. I think it's good. 7 is Revenge of the Sith. 8 is Solo. 9 is Attack of the Clones. And 10 is The Phantom Menace. So
All right.
I feel like, yeah.
Listen,
Good stuff, you guys.
Phantom Menace is the only Star Wars movie that has child Darth Vader yelling, "Now this is pod racing" in it, and that's why it'll always be in my heart.
That's fair.
And I love them
I
all.
have affection for it.
Yeah, I love them all. I love the prequels. I will defend the prequels regularly, and I'm so glad I got the chance to on podcast. But they get a lot of hate, and maybe that's deserved, but they're Star Wars whether people like it or not. So you can just choose to embrace it, or you can resist it. So
yeah. Like 2 months ago, I went into the JumpCast thread being like, hey, so should we do a Star Wars thing? We should do a Star Wars thing, right? And I could have picked any of them to do, and I was like, no, I want to talk about the prequels because I feel like they deserve to be discussed by people who, yes, are critical, but also have a lot of affection for them.
Yeah, I agree. So. I do have huge affection for them, even though my height before Phantom Menace was largely dashed. It took me quite a long time to kind of become critical of Phantom Menace, though, like longer than a lot of other people. You know, when famously, like Simon Pegg in Spaced, he was like put Phantom Menace, all of his Phantom Menace merch, like onto a bonfire, and you know, he was like absolutely hated it. But I was still quite, you know, defensive of Phantom Menace for a long time afterwards. But, you know, now I do look back on all three of them with affection, and I'm happy to defend them, especially Revenge of the Sith, which I think is a genuinely good movie.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that, you know, you can still really enjoy something while acknowledging that it's not that great. Like, you know, Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, I don't think are very good movies on like basic like filmmaking levels, but I still love them both to death. Because they're Star Wars, and I think on most levels, Star Wars, it's fun, it's exciting, and it's enjoyable to watch. Like I had fun watching most of both of those movies whenever Jar Jar was off screen. But like, yeah, you know, they're not super great movies, but you know, I still love them.
Yeah,
positivity.
They're wonderful. They're like, you know, they just have such a warm, like, nostalgic feeling for me that I just, like, can go back to them at any point and I can just have them on in the background and they make me really happy. So, like, what more can you really ask from a movie or a franchise than for it to have that, like, relationship in your life?
Seriously. And, like, I
Reach.
feel like when they're on TV, I'll watch them. Like, if I'm flipping through channels and one's on, I'm like, I'm not gonna watch it. Come on.
Yeah. It's on. Gotta watch it. All right. So, any last minute thoughts that you're gonna hate yourself if you don't get out about the prequels before we head out for today?
I want Hayden to be in Rise of Skywalker.
Whoa.
Seconded.
Force Ghost. Do it, JJ. I just want that on the record.
Yeah, no, I feel like that is a hot take to get out so close to the end of the
Yeah.
episode, but I agree with it, so it's...
You can't
Yeah.
make the movie The Rise of Skywalker and have it be about the end of the Skywalker saga and not include the biggest Skywalker. Like, I know how terrible he is,
OG Skywalker.
but you gotta put him in. Even if it just a Force Ghost, no lines, like, you just gotta see him. That's fine.
Wow.
I feel very strongly about this.
Well, you've convinced me. I think you've convinced all of us. So yeah, share your thoughts on Twitter, listeners. If you agree with Erin's proposal, I think you should. So yeah, thank you guys for being on here so much. I've really, really enjoyed talking to you today about the prequels, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to The Rise of Skywalker, and not looking forward to the discourse around it, but like I am looking forward to it. So
I'm not ready for it to end. I'm going to be devastated.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. I'm gonna weep. I already know.
Oh, I'm going to be a mess.
I think I have 3 different like engagements to see Rise of Skywalker with like different groups of people.
Yeah.
Because anytime anyone asks,
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna go.
Same.
See it
Yeah.
with you.
It's unclear as of now how many times I will see it, but it's definitely at least 2 to 3 already off the bat.
Yeah.
I was saying I have like the AMC A list, and I can already tell like the 3 movies that week. I'm just gonna see Rise of Skywalker 3 times. Like, there's no use.
Just yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta do it. All right. Awesome. So thank you guys for being on here. Thank you, Fee.
Thanks, Audrey.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
And thank you, Erin.
Thanks, Audrey.
We are out. Bye.